The NBA playoffs have started, but for the Detroit Pistons, their offseason is underway. And with the offseason already starting for the Pistons, we're already getting rumors about Tobias Harris being linked to the Detroit Pistons. Is Tobias Harris a guarantee at this point to be a Piston next year? We'll talk about that in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button at the YouTube channel. My goodness, my God, I just completely fumbled over that. Or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. Later on in the podcast, we'll talk about Draymond Green. I think this will probably be the only time I talk about the Draymond Green stuff to the Pistons. You guys will see why when we talk about it, but I don't think I'm going to be participating after this in the talks about Draymond Green from the Pistons community, unless like we get some legit rumors that it's legit or something when the offseason really starts for the whole NBA. And then at the end of the podcast, we'll grade the Pistons season for the final time. We'll reflect on it. I mean, we'll reflect on the season all offseason, really, honestly, but really grade this past season and give the final note to this past season for the Detroit Pistons. But before we get into any of that, Tobias Harris, former Detroit Piston, current Philadelphia 76er, currently in the playoffs. Over the weekend, I believe on Friday, either Thursday or Friday, I think it was Friday, reports came out that Tobias Harris is being linked to the Pistons. He's receiving interest from the Pistons. Then you saw some articles from the the Philadelphia 76ers beat writers that Sixers fans are done with Tobias Harris. Or maybe it wasn't, it was the Inquirer, right? Philadelphia Inquirer from Keith Pompey. That Sixers fans are done with Tobias Harris and they may get their wish this summer was the title of it. And it's talking about the Detroit Pistons going after Tobias Harris. For Pistons fans, this shouldn't be news to anybody because we had been hearing about Tobias Harris all the way back to December. All the way back to December during the losing streak. We heard about it again in February, right before the trade deadline. So this is not news, I think, to Pistons fans. I think what it more so is one, news to like maybe Philadelphia 76ers fans, news to NBA fans who are already looking forward to free agency. I think it's confirmation to Pistons fans. Because as the question says on the right side of the screen, or my side's right, it's going to be, I think, it's technically on my left from you, whatever. As the topic says on my show notes, is Tobias Harris a guarantee for the Detroit Pistons? I think he is. I think I'm close to just automatically like penciling in Tobias Harris, Detroit Piston next year. We've talked about it many times. Tobias loved his time here. He has family ties back here, I've heard. He comes back here, I've heard, in the summer. He loves it here. He wants to come back here. Like, he's had interest in wanting to sign here and wanting to be traded here during this season this played. I've heard all of this during the season. I think it's almost a guarantee that he's going to be with the Detroit Pistons. At this point, I would be shocked if he was not a Detroit Piston this offseason. I don't care. I know I saw some people saying, they don't even have their president of basketball operations yet, so all the rumors mean nothing at this point. No, I don't believe that. Whether it's Troy or no Troy, I think Tobias Harris will be a Detroit Pistons this offseason. Like, I don't care who's at the head of the Pistons. Technically, they're basketball ops. I feel pretty confident saying that Tobias Harris will be a Detroit Piston at the end of this offseason. And if he isn't, I'd be completely shocked. I saw some Pistons fans, though, in the Pistons community, questioning whether the Pistons should be interested in Tobias Harris. And I don't think that's the question that people should be asking, because I think that question is pretty cut and dry, and that's yes. The Pistons should absolutely have interest in Tobias Harris. Now, should he be their biggest offseason transaction? Like, once they get Tobias Harris, like, oh, there you go, guys, we did what we had to do. Now let's run it back. Like, no, obviously not. Like, if that's what they were going to do, which I don't think, I don't get the sense that that's what they're going to do. But if that is what they did, okay, then yes, there would be a problem because Tobias Harris is not completely shifting the Pistons' course of direction. Like that's not what's going to be happening. But that doesn't mean they should not be 100% interested in Tobias Harris because I expect them to make multiple moves. I expect, from what it sounds like, they're going to be making a lot of change this offseason. A lot of change. And if Tobias Harris is a part of it, it's 100% makes sense completely. This is Tobias Harris this past year with the Philadelphia 76ers. Not looking at his raw stats. We're going to go look at synergy. First of all, this is a well-rounded offensive player. He can do many different things offensively. So, synergy, 224 possessions as a spot-up player in the 78th percentile. They have that as very good. In transition, 214 possessions, 73rd percentile, very good. Post-up, 146 possessions, 71st percentile, very good. 136 possessions in isolation, 53rd percentile, ranked as good. On cuts, 75 possessions, 62nd percentile, good. Handoffs, 55th percentile, ranked as good. He is able, and then obviously if you just look at his raw stats, 17 points per game, 48% from the field. He actually had a down year when it comes to shooting from deep. He had shot 35% this year from deep. Over the last few seasons, he was hovering around 40%, though, 39%, 37%, 39%, 37%. So he's somewhere between like a 38% shooter from three since leaving Detroit in 2018, if you want to go that far. Before this past season, he was hovering around 40%. Like I said, this is a little bit of a down year for him from three. He also took less threes this year than he did last year. But either way, this is a well-rounded offensive player who can attack the defense in multiple different ways. And when he's not the number one option, that he's able to really feast on that. When he has someone else that he's able to feast off their gravity and feast off the attention they have, he is going to do it at a high level. And who would he be joining in Detroit? Cade Cunningham. Who's going to attract a lot of that attention? Cade Cunningham. Who's going to create for those players? Cade Cunningham. What does Simone Fontecchio just talk about his exit interview? How Cade made life so much easier on him and that he loves playing with Cade because of it. Cade Cunningham. That's who he'd be joining. And Tobias Harris, he's not some all-world defender. Don't get confused for that. But again, just like with Simone Fontecchio, he has size, he has length, and he gives effort defensively, whereas Bojan did not. And I don't mean to keep taking shots at Bojan, but that's just like where we're comparing to. Because the Pistons were really bad with Bojan, and he was a good shooter, and had people asking, Bojan's a good shooter. Why aren't they playing better? Because Bojan was actively a huge negative defensively because he just didn't try. Simone Fontecchio tried, and look how much better they were with Fontecchio on the floor now. You add Tobias, another guy who is good offensively and simply tries defensively and has size and length. It makes a difference versus what the Pistons did have. So I think it's a no-brainer. 100% you go after Tobias Harris. He fits exactly what you need. He is a good player, a really good player. He is exactly what the Pistons need. A 3 and a 4 who can do the things he does, move away from the two big lineups. Like, it makes complete sense to me. The only hang-up, this is the only hang-up that I think is fair, is that how much you want to pay him. Now, the Pistons have a lot of cap space this offseason. They need to spend that cap space. Now, over the last few episodes, or not over the last few episodes, a few episodes ago when we talked with Dubby, that Madden player, Philadelphia 76ers fan, and he talked about how when Philly had cap space, they needed to use it, so they went out and overpaid a veteran in J.J. Redick. Yeah, was J.J. Redick worth the amount they paid him? Probably not, but he served a purpose, and he was needed for that team, so they used him on a short-term contract, let him utilize that cap space, and he was a good player. Made sense, and it works. That's what you need to do. So could I see them possibly doing that with Tobias? Yes, a short-term contract, like 2 years, $25+ million. Is Tobias Harris actually worth $25+ million? You could argue maybe in the current NBA. I'd like to get him closer between the 20 to 25 million range. But if you got to overpay for him for $25+ million, it better be a short-term deal. You don't want him being paid that much for like 4 years. That would be a mistake. But if it's like a 2-year deal, $55 million, 2-year deal, that makes sense because you can flip that contract. You can add that contract in trades because people forget you need larger salaries to make trades. So next year you could flip them as an expiring. Even this year when they sign them, if you wanted to flip them, I'm not saying they would. I don't think they would flip them, but just giving yourself that flexibility of having that contract to flip. It's a good contract, short contract. Like, I don't have a problem with it. If they start getting to the 30+ million, that's when it's okay. No. But if they want to get to like I said, if they want to pay him $27 million a year for 2 years and then re-sign him at that point, or let him get another payday, like whatever, that makes sense to me. I'm not freaking out over that too much, as long as, like I said, they make other moves with it. If they don't make any other moves with it for real, then okay, that's an issue. But Tobias Harris in and of himself, great fit. I think it would be a great signing. He makes sense for what the team needs. He shouldn't be the biggest thing that happens to them this offseason. I don't think he will be. I don't think he'll be the only thing. But as part of the offseason, 100% a great signing. Fits what you need. Great, a really good offensive player. Gives effort defensively. Would fit right exactly with what they need. I don't see what the downside, why people wouldn't want Tobias Harris. Let me know in the comment section down below. I must be missing something. I don't know why you wouldn't want Tobias Harris on the Pistons. He's literally what they need. He's exactly what they've needed. I don't get it. But maybe you guys have something that I don't understand. Let me know in the comment section down below, or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. Do you want Tobias Harris? And if you don't, why would you not want Tobias Harris? Let me know. Again, comment section down below, or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. When we come back, is there interest in Draymond Green? Should the Pistons show interest in Draymond Green with the Warriors' big three potentially blowing it up? Should the Pistons go after Draymond? I'm going to give what I hope to be my final thoughts on that when we come back. When it comes to your financial future, you think you've done it all. You've saved, you've researched, you've invested all that you can. Now you need to take those investments to the next level by using what every financial great uses: Yahoo Finance. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. They are the #1 finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. Securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401ks and other investments. A comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors, and is how Yahoo Finance ensures you have the insight to look at your wealth in its entirety. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the #1 financial destination, yahoofinance.com. Again, that's yahoofinance.com. Then let me tell you about another one of our sponsors, FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL, and baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every single game. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 bonus bets, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. And like I've said to you guys many times before, a few years ago when betting was made legal in Michigan, I didn't know where to go. I wasn't well-versed in this kind of thing. I tried out FanDuel. I haven't turned back since. It's incredibly fun, incredibly self-explanatory, and all kinds of things you can do over there on FanDuel. It's absolutely amazing. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic winner with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. So another offseason where the Pistons have cap space, another offseason where Draymond Green potentially is being moved on from the Warriors. So, of course, that means Draymond Green being linked to the Detroit Pistons. Now, is he being linked to the Detroit Pistons through reports? I have not seen that. But as it usually goes, I'm assuming we're going to get that soon. If there's any idea that gets floated out that he actually is, that the Warriors are actually going to move on from Draymond and or Clay, you can bet that you're going to start hearing reports about Draymond to Detroit because they have money, and they're just like every single time Draymond potentially is available, all of a sudden you hear the Pistons involved because they're the one team. He's from Michigan. He grew up watching the Pistons. Oh, he might actually go there, and then puts pressure on it, blah, blah, blah. Okay? We hear it every time. But this offseason, I'm getting ahead of it. Because I've already seen some Pistons fans, I'd actually say quite a few Pistons fans in the community, talking about, hey, if they blow it up and Draymond's actually available, Pistons should go after Draymond. Let me make this very clear. Again, I hope this is the only time I have to talk about this. Koo, do you have interest in Draymond Green? No. I have absolutely zero interest in Draymond Green. Keep him the hell away from the Pistons. Keep him away from the Pistons. And it's not because of his play. Draymond is one of the best defensive players we have ever seen. He is one of the best defensive players of our generation. He is one of the best defensive players of NBA history. He is a great defensive player. He's one of the smartest players on the court, I should say. Basketball, actually, you know what? Let's go even more specific with that because we're going to break that down in a minute. Basketball-wise, he is one of the smartest players we have seen. He's an incredibly high IQ player when it comes to the game of basketball on both ends of the floor. His playmaking ability, he's one of the best passing four men we've ever seen. He's one of the best short roll passers we've ever seen. He makes the right decisions offensively. He's kind of a point forward kind of type in the Warriors offense. He's a quarterback, I guess is the better way, not the point forward, a quarterback offensively. Draymond has a purpose. He's not going to put up gaudy numbers. Everyone knows that. He only averaged 8 points a game, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, but his impact is felt on the defensive end of the floor, what he's able to do on the defensive end, and now he's able to quarterback the Warriors offense. He's going to be a Hall of Fame level player, all that stuff. Now let's break it down. Why you absolutely should not. One, he's 34 years old. I don't know how much longer he has in the tank. That's one. Two, I'm interested to see what, I think one of the things that has been talked about with Draymond for a long time, a lot of people are interested to see how he would look away from Steph Curry and the gravity he has and this gravity that Klay Thompson has. People would love to see what Draymond would look like on another team where he's not able to, constantly attack 4-on-3s or has Steph Curry to rely on. Like, I'm not saying Draymond Green isn't great in and of himself. He is. But would he be this caliber of player without Steph, without that system? I don't know. But that's not really what I'm diving into. There is some questions about what he would look like outside the Warriors system. And I think those are fair questions. That's two. But those ones are very minute details. Very, 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 very tiny ones. Obviously, he's not a good three-point shooter. I know he shot 39% on just 2 attempts after shooting like 39 or 30%, 29% over the last few years. So he's not a good three-point shooter. He's not going to shoot them. But again, that's even a very small, very minute reason why not to. The 99.99% reason why you don't bring Draymond Green to the Detroit Pistons because they're a young team. I don't need him going around beating up the young guys. I don't need him punching one of the young guys. I don't need him coming here punching players at the Pistons practice facility. I don't need him here trying to, people think, I know Pistons fans, some Pistons fans are going to love this. They think him coming and punching players in the practice facility is great because that resembles bad boys culture. Let's get it going. Let's beat up people. Like, can we play good basketball? Like, this is not the UFC. This is not boxing. We don't need people beating up people. This isn't 1980 no more. This is 2024. You need to have skill. You don't need to just be big and physical and fight people no more. Like, you actually have to have skill. Like, that does, and a bad culture that the Pistons have a bad culture right now. Bringing someone in that could just fight somebody, that's not for a good culture. And I would argue, actually not even argue, the evidence presents itself that what Draymond did to Jordan Poole was not good. It did not work out. It did not set a good culture as they flamed out last season, move on from Poole, and now they don't even make the playoffs this season because they don't have the guy they thought was going to be replacing Stephen Klay because they had to move on from him because he was mentally checked out after getting knocked out by the veteran on the team. I don't need that. The Pistons don't need that. No one needs that on this team. They need some good veterans that will lead by example on the court and be there and be available, not get themselves suspended because they want to put somebody in a UFC chokehold game 2 and get suspended for 21 games. They don't need someone who's going to throw a spinning back fist Anderson Silva style at somebody and then get suspended for another 5 games. And they don't need someone who's then going to get teed up and ejected immediately into a game if Kay Cunningham happens to be out and not playing that game. Like, that's not what they need. They don't need any of that. Draymond, you're a good player. He's a great player. He's a Hall of Famer. He's an extremely smart basketball-wise player. But they don't need somebody trying to beat up people. They don't need someone that's going to be constantly unavailable because they try to beat up somebody. They're not going to need someone who's unavailable because he actually did beat up somebody. They don't need someone who's going to be unavailable because he's going to try to put someone in a chokehold. He doesn't need somebody that's going to be unavailable because they try to throw a spinning back fist at somebody. And they don't need somebody who's going to be unavailable and then going on the podcast talking about he doesn't feel like he did anything wrong after he then didn't try to assault somebody on the basketball court. Like, for all those reasons. And granted, none of those are actually basketball reasons. Because basketball reasons, yeah, if you want a defensive player like that and can teach, defensive things and all that stuff, yeah, sure. But all of that he just tanked the Warriors season. The Warriors who he's won 4 championships with, and the leader, Steph Curry, that he has immense respect for, even that didn't stop him from doing what he's done. You think he's going to come to Detroit and not do that and not have the antics? Who's he respecting in Detroit that's going to stop him from doing it? If he's not going to stop it for Steph, he had Steph Curry crying on a court. You think he's going to, if he can do that to Steph, what's stopping him from ruining? Like, bro, no, I'm out on Draymond. Do not suggest Draymond to me. I'm not interested in Draymond Green. I don't care. I don't care what he can do on the defensive side of the ball. I promise you, I have zero care for the Detroit Pistons. For the Warriors, re-sign him, give him a 4-year contract. Great. It makes sense. You and Steph, all that stuff, whatever. Keep him the hell away from the Detroit Pistons. It is nothing to do with basketball-wise. But I need to see that Draymond, honestly, if I was any other NBA team, before I even have interest in Draymond, I need proof that he's not going to be trying to increase his UFC record on the floor. Like, that's what I need. I need proof that he's not going to try and improve his record on the floor, fighting-wise, before I even have a remote level of interest in him. So that's it for me. That's all. That's my thoughts on Draymond. I don't have interest in Draymond. None. And I hope I don't have to address that. I really hope that this is not something that comes up in the offseason, because I just don't understand how you can see the Pistons, how young they are, and see what Draymond did to the biggest young player on the Warriors and what he's done to Steph Curry during this season, and how he's been unavailable over and over and over. He literally, they had to suspend him indefinitely and send him to whatever you want to call it. I don't know what exactly it was, but he had to get sent somewhere, rehab, therapy, whatever, to stop punching people, to stop trying to beat people up on the court. Like, why would you want that around your young core? Like, I don't. And then he came back and did it again. No, I'm done. I don't have any interest in Draymond. I'm sorry. So moving on. I don't want to hear your guys' thoughts. If anyone who supports Draymond, please do not comment underneath the YouTube video and tell me, because it will send me into a fitted rage. Don't tell me. We'll move on. We're going to put the final bow. We're going to tie it up, put the final bow on this Detroit Pistons season when we come back. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools that help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, and even those who aren't actually searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses are using LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And LinkedInjobs.com/LockedOnNBA. So I want to thank you guys again for being Locked On Pistons, your first listen of every single day. Free and available on your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. I'm going to put the final bow on the Detroit Pistons season this past year. And does this mean we're not going to talk about this? Like, this season, is it going to get brought up? Obviously, it has to get brought up during the offseason on what to do and And we still have player reviews. We're going to do player reviews. So in that context, we'll talk about like player seasons this past year. But I hope that this will be like my final thoughts in whole on the Pistons season this past year. This past season, now that it's over, I think everyone can say is the worst season that anyone has experienced as a Pistons fan, as a Pistons beat writer, as someone who covers the Pistons. Anyone that's inside the big scope that is the Pistons community, it was the worst season by far for anybody involved. I don't know anyone. I haven't spoken to anyone. It wasn't like I didn't have fun this year watching this team. As someone who covers the team, I didn't have fun. The losing streak, we did great numbers. We gained a lot of viewers. I appreciate it for all of you who joined during the losing streak and are still around, obviously. But as like entertainment value, enjoyed it. Like I didn't enjoy this. Other beat writers didn't enjoy this. The players didn't enjoy this. The fans didn't enjoy this. Like no one enjoyed this past season. It was the worst season in Pistons history. It was horrible. And not only was it horrible just within the season, what it's done now to the Pistons moving forward is a sad sight to see. They're going to move on from young talent now to try to save this thing because they have to. They're going to move on from young talent to try to save this thing. They're probably going to mortgage some of the future to try to save this thing. They are now having to try to convince Cade that they have a direction, that they have a goal, that they have a vision, and convince him of that vision. So in 2 years, in a year and a half, in 2 years, we're not hearing Cade Cunningham has requested a trade from the Detroit Pistons. This was never supposed to happen. All of this stuff I just laid, that was never supposed to happen. This was not how this was supposed to go. What was the is it the Penguin in that oh my no not the Penguin. Oh my god, who's that? Oh my god. See that the reference would have been so much cooler if I had it off the dome. The last Batman movie. And oh my god, I love Batman. Why do I not remember? I can't remember the villain that it was. It's like on the tip of my tongue when he's in jail and he's screaming at Batman. This is not how it was supposed to go. Like that is this season. That is what this season was. As Pistons fans, screaming back at Tom Gores across the jail glass. That's what they're screaming at everybody. Screaming at Troy Weaver. This was not how this was supposed to go. But it is. And what makes it worse is that they were not trying to do this season. They were trying to win. And this happened. This season went wrong in every possible direction it could have went. And I think one of the main things or one of the things I want to mention for the last time is they should have acted sooner this year. Like to just react to this season and give my thoughts again. This is something we talked about during the season at that time, but looking back on it, they should have reacted sooner. There's no way that they should have waited until February, the day of the trade deadline, or the week of the trade deadline, to make changes. The fact that the front office and the organization sat still and did nothing and allowed this team to go on a 28-game losing streak, to allow them to go on the longest losing streak of all time that spanned in one season. Now, it wasn't the longest through 2 seasons, but I think it tied that one. But it was the longest losing streak ever and within a single season. For them to sit there and watch that happen and do nothing, just do nothing. There's no way that anyone should have survived their jobs this year during that. The fact that no changes were made during that, it was crazy. Like I said, I've referenced this multiple times in the podcast throughout this year. And wink, wink, elbow, elbow, nudge, nudge. And now that the season's over, I'll go ahead and throw that out there for you guys to make it even more clear. Making changes was not just for wins on the floor. You were losing players. Mentally, you were losing players. Players were not were losing faith in what was being told to them. They were losing faith in themselves. They were losing faith in each other. That's what happens. I've referenced the podcast that JJ Redick and Tim Legger have talked about this over and over and over again. There's a reason why I've referenced it so many times over and over and over again. When you get on that type of losing, when you have that type of negative energy building and building and building and building at historical rates, it's not just at that point. It wasn't just about the win-loss record at that point. It wasn't about trying to save the season and make a play-in push. It wasn't about saving the season, trying to push for 25 wins. It was about the fact you doing nothing was not only adding to the loss column, but also was destroying everyone within the building. You are losing players mentally. They were losing faith in each other. They were losing faith in themselves. They were losing faith in the team. Like, you allowed that to happen. And maybe some of that contributed to some of the players' struggles we watched. Maybe that contributed to some of the players' back steps. The players that did not take a step forward, they actually took a step backwards. Maybe that contributed to all of that. Maybe that's what it was. But the organization encouraged that. The losing culture, the culture that was built this last season, the changes that they made to the week of the trade deadline, it was too late. There was no saving that. I'm not talking there was no saving the win-loss record of the first month and a half of the season. It was over at that point. But saving the culture, saving these players, saving what was left, the week of the trade deadline, it was too late. It had already been 4 months of this energy building up and up and up. Distrust happening. Distrust building up and up and up. Lack of faith building up and up. Lack of faith in each other, in themselves, building up and up and up. They allowed that to continue to build. And that's probably what's going to be my biggest takeaway from this season. It was terrible, worst season in Pistons history. But the fact that the decision makers allowed it to continue for that long and didn't make a change before it was too late. Again, not referencing before it was too late to make a play-in push or win 30 games, but before it was too late losing your guys, it was criminal. It made no sense. I could not believe it. I still can't believe it. I just can't believe, and it contributed. I can tell you guys that it contributed to a lot of things that A, happened during the season, and B, you're going to hear about this offseason. That them not making changes and stopping this or trying to stop it from getting worse is what caused what may come out this offseason. It is what it is. I still even thinking back to it, I still cannot believe that it was just allowed to continue to get worse and worse and worse for everyone. And no one did anything. Not a single change was made until February. That's the final. That right there, I'm gonna put the final bow in the Pistons season. That's my final thoughts on that. That was my final biggest takeaway, because I think, and for those of you guys who may be still not picking up and wondering what's going on, I think you guys will start to understand this offseason. I think people will understand what I mean this offseason. So we'll that's the final bow on the Pistons season. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free to Illinois podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. And until next time, peace out.